Greetings folks, this video is all about the awesome RadioMaster TX16S radio, multi-protocol radio with a big 4.3 inch colour screen, touchscreen option, hall sensor gimbals option with buttons and sliders and switches everywhere. I'll have a much closer look at the radio a little bit later on in the review. We'll even have a look inside as well, but for the moment I'm going to go flying and demonstrate how it works actually flying out in the field with a few different sorts of receivers. And if you watch right to the end, I'll show you some of the little mods that I've done, little 3D printed adjustment to the slider switch, which I'll talk about a lot more later on. Anyway, let's get flying. First up, we've got the Phoenix 2000. Picture on the screen, I have a Vario.
0 meters.
Have a Vario on board so I can demonstrate the altitude and Vario sounds. Also have a LiPo sensor on there as well. That's all working. Crow braking's working. Alright. I have a arm switch on there. Yep, we're right there. There's the Vario sound. Getting up to some height, and I'm not even noticing the radio at the moment. The gimbals actually do feel really nice. I'm not used to a bit of trim. Vario's working. Gimbals feel nice. Trim switches. Trim switches are in a really nice spot. With my Taranis QX7, I'm always struggling to find that one there. Alright, let's do a bit of gliding. Gimbals feel very nice and smooth, I have to say. A bit of lift there. There's the crow braking, that works well. Power up a bit more. So this radio is feeling very nice indeed. I have to say it actually feels a little bit better than my Taranis QX7, which I'm very used to. Vario works well. There's the altitude readout, all that normal FR Sky telemetry works well. Let's try some crow braking. Very good. Can put that on and off as I want.
5.6 meters.
So let's bring it into land now. Crow brakes on. Look at that, lovely. So that's the Phoenix with the FR Sky Vario LiPo sensor on the X8R receiver. So now let's pop in the R9M module and fly the Trainstar Ascent. I'll turn it off just to be safe. This is the R9M 2019, just the original one as it came with the R9 receiver, which is discontinued, I believe. No firmware updates or anything like that, just the way it was. So here we go with the R9M. This is really just to show you that the R9M 900 megahertz actually works, no problems at all. I actually have this set up for FPV, but I won't be doing an FPV or long range, just going for a fly. And it's all working very nicely. Look at that long range, wow, all the way out there. Anyway, you know what I mean. The system works. It could fly out to 10 kilometers if I wanted to, but that would be illegal, so it's not something I do. Just showing that the R9M with the R9 receiver works fine with this radio. External module on the lovely Volant Trainstar Ascent. Once again, feel like I've got very nice, smooth and precise control with these sticks. Easy trim buttons. I like those location of those trim buttons. I'm not even thinking about the radio, to be honest. It's just working well. And now we have the full iNav build with the L9R receiver, long range receiver, 2.4 gigahertz. So let's see how that goes. So there we go. Manual mode, return to home. Switches are all falling to hand easy. Angle mode. .3D cruise. Some other people flying out there. I better go out this way. 3D cruise. And that's just going to fly off into the distance. Return to home. So this just feels wonderful. Let's get out of the way there. So with the transmitter hanging on the strap, it just sort of feels light and easy. Really nice gimbals. I assume these are the Hall gimbals. I really often can't tell the difference. And I think I've got the touch screen, but we won't know until we get OpenTX 2.4. Other people have been talking about the sort of grid pattern over the LCD screen for the touch screen, but mine doesn't seem to have that, so I wonder whether I don't have the touchscreen. We'll find out eventually, and I'll let you know when we get 2.4 available. But boy, this radio is feeling very nice at the moment. This radio will be fantastic for full house gliders, I'm sure. You've got all the controls, and the sliders work well too. I'm going to go around again. That's a bit too fast, too high. All the switches for an iNav setup as well. All the switches you could ever need. Crazy amounts of switches and knobs and dials. Big screen. Look, I don't need the big screen. I don't need a touch screen either, really. But it's good to have, I suppose. Excellent. Well, there you go. So it works for iNav on an L9R. So for flying in the hand, in the field, the radio feels fantastic. Feels a lot better than I thought it would, actually. So let's head back to the workshop. We'll have a much closer look at all the nitty-gritty, all the technical stuff, and we'll have a look inside as well. Let's have a closer look at the RadioMaster TX16S. It comes in this really nice EPP packing case, which also can act as a storage case, I suppose. It's kind of bulky, but gives it very good protection. Here's the radio. Fits in very snugly. What else do we get? We get a USB-C charging cable and a cute little transmitter keyring. This radio comes in 3 different versions. There's the base model for about $99 US, which doesn't have the Hall sensor gimbals or the touchscreen. There's the mid version, which this one is, which does have the Hall sensor gimbals and the touchscreen. Then there's the top one, which includes the Hall sensor gimbals, the touchscreen and the Team Black Sheep micro module as well. We have switches and knobs everywhere. We have a momentary switch at the back there and a 2-position switch on this side, 3-position switches there. These are all 3-position switches. A couple of knobs here. We have another switch, which is a 6-position sort of single touch switch. That's interesting. I quite like that. That'll be good for flight modes. We have the sticks and their trims. We also have another couple of trims here, and these trims can be assigned to any channel that you want or any function that you want, which is pretty incredible. A couple of sliders on the back, and we'll talk about the sliders in a little bit. And we have the big 4.3 inch colour screen. Even the base model can be upgraded to a touch screen. On this side we have a system setup button, and on this side we have a model setup button, and we have a return button, page forward, page back, and tally button for more telemetry, page and theme setup. And then we have the scroll wheel, scroll and touch there. If we turn it over, we have a module bay there, JR module bay, where you can put in external modules. We have the battery bay here, a big battery bay that easily fits two 18650s, and it comes with the 18650 battery holder. You can fit a variety of 2S LiPos in here. 1300 2S LiPo fits easily. 2200 fits in the bay but just sort of sits up a little bit too high to put the cover back on. Has a built-in USB charger, but it's only for 2S LiPos and lithium ion, which is a wonderful feature. I've been using that all the time. Just when I go back inside, I pop it next to my computer and pop the charger in and let it top up the batteries, which is awesome. These sort of rubberized grips here and on the side. On the top we have the antenna, which is sort of hard fixed into this plate here, but it is removable. It's sort of plugged into the board by a UFL plug. It's securely fitted in there, so it's not going to come off, and I think it has to be like that for regulations. On the top we have the data port, or connecting to your computer, and the trainer port. And on the bottom we have the charging USB port there, the SD card there. It does come with an SD card loaded with all the voice commands and all that sort of stuff, all the model photos and things, which is great, and a couple of external UART ports. Connecting peripherals such as Bluetooth module, GPS module, I believe, and whatever UARTs can be used for, and for flashing firmware to peripherals as well. Sliders are essential for me on all my Tyrannus radios. I've had sliders, even my QX7, which doesn't have a slider, I have taken the knob from the side and put it on there. Absolutely need sliders for things like crow braking and pan and tilt gimbals. The sliders that it comes with, I think, are way too loose. They have a good centered detent, which is good, but all the other movement is too free and easy, and it just doesn't give you confidence that you wouldn't bump it out of place. I've actually done a mod already and printed myself up a slightly thicker knob for it, so it sort of scrapes on the side of the case, on this side here actually, so that just gives it a little bit more friction, so that it's definitely going to stay where you leave it. And I'll give you a link to my Thingiverse account where you can download these and print them for yourself if you want to. But for me, that's kind of an essential mod, just so that you've got confidence that the slider is going to work the way you want to, and it's not going to be bumped out of place or anything like that. The knobs are a similar sort of very, very loose function. They do have the detent in the centre, but I would prefer slightly more friction in the action of the sliders and the knobs on the front. Now, how does it feel in the hand? I usually have my hands like this. I have my finger up there like that, so it sort of cocks my wrist back a little bit to give me easier operation of the stick there. That allows me to do that. I've got quite a decent grip all the way around. That feels quite nice. Have easy access to all the switches here and the sliders on the side. That's all very nice. So it feels close enough to what I'm used to that I can easily change to this radio. Now, how does it compare to my other usual radios? I've been using the QX7 the most, and that right now feels quite comfortable in my hands. I did have to hack it and put the slider on the side. The QX7 is sort of shorter and wider and a little bit lighter than the other two radios. The other Tyrannus, the normal X9D Plus, feels more like the TX16S. Probably has sort of a smoother moulded shape to it. Sliders are very good on the original Tyrannus. Bigger monochrome screen. It doesn't have the big colour touchscreen like the TX16S. Weights, the TX16S is the heaviest. It's about 870 grams. The QX7 is a bit lighter. 740 grams, 870 grams, and I haven't got a battery in this one here, but it's a little bit lighter, maybe 840 grams or something like that. One good thing about the TX16S is that it is balanced when you connect your strap. You probably would want to use a strap, I think, because it's reasonably heavy. Balances nicely. The QX7 and the X9D Plus both need these extensions here to get them to hang horizontally. And of course neither of these radios has the multi-module, so they can only handle FrSky gear as they are. The TX16S can communicate with just about any receiver on the market. Now, I'm quite used to using this small monochrome screen. I'm actually having to get used to this big screen with lots more stuff on it. So configurable. You can configure absolutely everything you want on the screen. I find the default, this is OpenTX by the way, it's not so much the radio. I find the default setup is a little bit too busy. The background image just gets in the way. See that figure there hides some of that detail. But none of this is set up by default. You sort of have to set up both of these screens and the top row information there for every model. Or the obvious thing to do is to have a couple of default models and just copy them down and sort of tweak them for any new models. And here I have a stock sort of 5-channel plane, stock iNav with the L9R, an iNav quad that I'm playing with at the moment. It's a fair learning curve to learn the OpenTX version that supports the colour screen. As I said, I'm so used to having the little monochrome screen. That's all part of the fun, and I'm pretty sure this is going to be my standard radio now. The old QX7 is getting a bit long in the tooth. Something I do really like about the QX7 is this navigation dial here. I just love that action. That's very smooth and easy to operate, and these buttons here too. I'm not convinced by the roller and the push. It's a little bit more clunky, a little bit more imprecise I suppose, and the buttons down the side. They're going to take some getting used to though. It's just sort of a familiarity thing. I'm very, very familiar with the layout and the navigation with the QX7. My fingers are going to have to learn the new spots on the new radio, of course. Comparing prices, the TX16S is just a tiny bit more expensive than the QX7 at the moment, and it's about half the price of the Tyrannus X9D Plus. So this is going to be an enormously popular radio just on price alone, and it has all those amazing extra features. Now I'll take the back off so we can have a look at it, and you'll need to take the back off if you want to adjust the feel of the throttle stick, because it comes with this sort of bumpy feel, which I don't know if anyone likes that. I certainly don't. See, I've added a 2S extension cable there just so I don't have to keep pulling this little plug out in there. And we have 4 screws there, and there, and a couple of bolts in the top here that we need to loosen off as well. Taking it apart is a bit more fiddly than other radios because you have these side grips that have to be pulled out as well. It's probably a good idea to take the JR bay cover off too, so that when you're putting the back on, you don't muck up those pins. Back should just lift off now. There we go. And there we are. To adjust the throttle action, you can loosen off this one to get rid of the bumpy feel and tighten up this one to increase the friction a little bit. Now this is something that worries me a little bit. The cables for the rudder lever, the rudder stick, pass under these springs and very close to the slider, the friction slider for the throttle. They're not actually touching anything, but they're just in a very awkward spot. It's probably all right, but I would prefer that sort of running over the top myself. Now here are the slider knobs. They actually just lift off like that. These are my 3D printed ones. These are the original ones. Just slide on there. Mine are just 1mm or 1.2mm thicker, so that they rub on the casing a little bit more, give a bit more friction. Here you can see the antenna connection there, UFL connector, so that can be just pulled off and changed if necessary. I believe in the T16, the jumper T16 radios, there was a problem with the ribbon cables that they used. So RadioMaster have decided not to use ribbon cables. They've used these normal free wires. Hopefully that'll be more durable. One thing I really like to do with radios is switch the momentary switch from the right side over to the left side. Unfortunately, that would be quite difficult because that switch and the switch in front of it are sort of soldered onto the same board. You can undo them, but you can't really pull them out all that easily. You would have to unsolder them and then solder them back over, which I may still do eventually. And I like the momentary switch on the left side for discus launching, because I like to launch with my right hand and hold the radio in my left hand and have my finger on the momentary switch for a bit of launch mode settings. So, summing up, this is an incredible radio for the money, really. Has all the functionality and more compared to the Tyrannus for about half the price. Multi-module, which I don't really need, but that's important to some people. Nice big touchscreen, colour touchscreen. Again, I don't really need that, but I found it a very easy transition from what I'm using to use this radio, and it felt very, very nice to me. It's not perfect. There are a few little issues with the quality of the knobs and the sliders, I think. I would gladly pay more for the same radio with better quality knobs and sliders. Switches feel very good and positive, so only time will tell how they last. I'm sure this radio is going to be enormously popular for the price and the functionality. And I hope in the future we get the option of sort of better quality hardware as well. Thanks for watching.